it's kind of like exhilarating in a way. I don't know. It sounds like kind of a high, like you found something valuable laying on the street. You kind of have to like steal in a way. Not that it's like stealing, but kind
Yeah.
of.
It was really weird because it was in a trash bag. I'll be honest, it's kind of dirty. But it was tipped over, and I was like, okay, guys, there's a shirt hanging out, and I was like, Dad, I'm just gonna grab it. And he was like, dude, it's probably dirty, like it probably has cat pee on it. And I was like, no, it's okay. And so I grabbed it, I picked it up, and it was a 70's Big Bird Sesame Street shirt.
And we're saying your average price is roughly $30. So that's $87,000, Trey O'Toole. I'm talking to a wealthy man. Thank you, everyone, so much for being here today. I'm Ryan, a co-founder of Student Made and host of this show, Making It Creative. Today's episode is a creator story episode, which means we'll be taking a deep dive into the journey of one creative entrepreneur from within our Student Made community. How he initially started exploring an idea, when he decided to turn it into a business, how his college campus comes into play, and of course, how the Student Made community is helping fuel his growth. The main focus of this episode is going to be on honing a brand by adapting it to your environment. So you can read this story and all of our past creator features on our stories page of our website, studentmadestore.com. That will also be linked in today's show notes. Before we get started, I would just like to give a big thank you to our sponsor for this episode, the Riata Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship in the Spears College of Business at Oklahoma State. So here's a little bit about them. The Riata Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship has all the tools and resources you need to build your idea from the ground up. Riata's experiential learning programs are designed to push students out of their comfort zones, encourage them to explore hands-on learning opportunities, while enhancing their educational experiences at OSU. In collaboration with professors and campus partners, our team is dedicated to helping student entrepreneurs turn their ideas into reality. So, with that, we will let our guest introduce himself today, and then we're also going to hear him read his story for us, just to get some background on where this episode will go.
Hey guys, this is Trey O'Toole, and you're listening to my story. I'm a junior marketing major at Oklahoma State, and I'm from Wiley, Texas, like the Dallas area. While I'm in school, I run a vintage clothing brand called Threefold Vintage. All of my original customers came from Wiley, as I started Threefold selling clothes on my garage to students from my high school. Further, a lot of my closest friends in the community are from Dallas, and I learned a lot from them sourcing and selling at markets together. Funny enough, my attending Oklahoma State was never really in the cards growing up. I grew up an OU fan, the main rival of OSU, and I always thought I would attend there. However, my dad attended both, and when it came to Stillwater and the Spear School of Business, I just fell in love. I'm studying marketing here as I've always been intrigued by how companies are able to convince consumers to spend their hard-earned money with them. And being in marketing courses throughout my time here at OSU has just grown that love for marketing. So like I said, I run a vintage clothing company called Threefold Vintage, where I specialize in Oklahoma State gear. I've been pursuing this venture for about 3.5 years, and I started at the beginning of my senior year of high school. I think I've kind of always just had an entrepreneurial spirit, and I didn't have time for a real job in high school. So I started off selling stuff on Facebook Marketplace that I had around the house. Then I began finding stuff on bulk trash pickup day in my neighborhood and sold things like lamps, chairs, or anything I could find for no cost that had some sort of value. One day I stumbled across a bag of vintage clothing and began to do my research. Prior to this, I'd already watched some YouTube videos like Jacob Starr and Paul Cantu, who also sell vintage clothing, so I had some sort of knowledge. However, finding this bag in the trash was kind of a jump start to me focusing on vintage. From then, I began thrifting for my clothes, and my mom encouraged me to just start an Instagram because why not? And I started taking it more seriously. When it comes to Student Made, I was drawn to it because of the opportunity of being plugged into the local community. And before hearing about Student Made, I had only done a couple of events in Stillwater and was trying to figure out how I could do events directly with OSU. Further, meeting all of the other entrepreneurs part of Student Made here at OSU has been beneficial in hearing their feedback and learning about their different ventures.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for reading that. Well done. I loved reading your story. It's always so fascinating to hear the background behind ideas like this. Starting with where you're from, a bit of your background there, Wiley, Texas. So I Googled Wiley, Texas. I'd never heard of it before and found out it has the nickname Wide Awake Wiley. Have you ever heard of that? Never.
I haven't, no.
Okay, Wide Awake Wiley. I guess it was like a in the 40s and 50s they had late night community gatherings, and so it earned itself the nickname Wide Awake Wiley. So um, never heard it before. Now you know. Fun fact.
Now I know about my own town, yeah.
um, you mentioned you started this out of your garage, which is really interesting because it's the second creator episode in a row now where the business started out of a garage, like the classic startup story. The last one was a creator from UNC Chapel Hill named Kanisha. She started a jewelry business out of her garage, actually opening it up to customers to come in during COVID, during like, when they couldn't really be in a house. She's like,
Right.
opened up the garage for them. I was curious, did you actually sell out of your garage originally, or was it more just like a workspace inventory spot?
Well, so I would say like with my Facebook Marketplace stuff, like when I was just selling random stuff, that was definitely stored in my garage because my mom didn't want someone's thrown away couch in the house. So,
Mm.
but when I started moving into vintage, I used the garage and like our front room in my house. So shout out my mom for letting me use that front room and giving it up. But yeah, people would come. I would post on like my Snapchat story with like 150 people, and they would be like, "Can I come shop?" And I'd be like, "Sure, yeah, come shop." And I'd have appointments and pretty frequent shoppers from the Wiley High basketball team.
Really, the basketball team? Why do you think specifically the basketball team?
I think they just liked the clothes a lot. Like it aligned with like what they like to wear. And I
Okay.
knew a couple of them, but then they started bringing all their buddies. Like I know I have a picture somewhere where there was like 10 of like the whole roster of the basketball team was just in there holding up a shirt they just bought off of me and like just posted up in my front room.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Was your house like centrally located to town or near school, or was it like kind of inconvenient at all to get to?
Um, I wouldn't say it was pretty central. It was actually kind of on the outside of town, but I guess they wanted it enough to come out there.
Well, that's good because I mean, you hear about like, having a prime storefront location usually has to be in like a downtown, but if people are willing to trek all the way to your garage on the outskirts, that says something about your product
Yeah.
for sure. So that's very cool. So, all right, so that's kind of the first point of selling, actually interacting with customers that you had. So backing up a little bit to actually how this idea got started, I believe you said in your story that this started literally digging through some trash on the side of the road, like trash pickup day, which I think is just so fun. I mean, honestly, sounds awesome, and I love, like, yes, you hear about the classic startup stories like Steve Jobs, Apple in a garage. This just sounds way more fun, honestly, and interesting. Digging through trash and recovering some hidden jewels in the trash like that. So maybe not as much money in it like there was for Apple back in the whatever 70s when they started that, but as it turns out, that hidden junk actually was pretty valuable. Not only some of the things you found, but also valuable because it kind of shifted the direction of your business at that time. I think you had started collecting kind of anything and everything, and then you found something that was like especially stood out to you. So take us through kind of day one there, perusing through trash pickup day. How did you feel doing this? Was it like strange, awkward? Like, do people, look at you out their window? Like, is that Trey, picking up our junk on the front lawn? Like, what's happening out there?
So my neighborhood is kind of like everyone has a golf cart. So me and my
Mm,
dad, we would just like go around at night, like 9 p.m. and just go around the neighborhood on. And it one day it just happened. It was bulk trash pickup day, and so we would stop and like see like, oh, there's like an old lamp. Like maybe I could sell that. I was trying to make money, like $10. Maybe I
yeah.
could sell that lamp for $10 on Facebook. And so that's how like that idea started. But then we started doing it every Tuesday, I think it was. And my dad would be like, "You want to go look at the trash?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, let's go." And I do remember because we have like a gate guard at the front of our neighborhood. I do remember one time they drive up with their car and we're on the golf cart like looking through something, and they pull up and they're like, "What are y'all doing?" Like we got a call like there's like delinquents digging through
Oh,
trash, and we were like, "Oh no, we were
entrepreneurs,
just we
actually.
were just curious." Um, but that's the only. I wasn't really nervous about what people would say, but that was the only kind of like run in with I guess, an adverse reaction.
Yeah. Well, at least it's put out there for trash, so it's
Right,
not like
right.
it's people's belongings anymore.
Yeah.
Um, but no, I relate to that. The only like instance where I've come close to something like that is looking for firewood. Love to partake in a good bonfire in the backyard, and I will go around, and if there's any kind of like, which in my neighborhood areas around here, for some reason people are getting rid of a lot of wood. I don't know why, whether it's from like, I don't know, decks or just like scrap construction wood. I will go, but I'll like do it at night because I think I
Yeah.
would feel a bit awkward being seen, like taking people's stuff from their front yard, which I have done several times. And I also learned it's not good to burn treated wood. I learned that the hard
Mm,
way.
yeah.
Yeah, a lot of chemicals in that, and you don't want to be ingesting that at all. But I did for a while, take a lot of scrap. Anyway, so you also talked in your story about a bit of a friend group you developed around this business, which I think is super cool because honestly, we don't hear about that a lot. I think for creative, in Student Made, we have mostly creative oriented founders. And I feel like when you're developing a craft, it's very solo, spend a lot of time putting into your products. And even like most of the stuff happens on social media. It's like it can be kind of lonely, isolating. But it doesn't sound like that was the experience for you. So I was curious to hear a bit more about who you connected with. I know you mentioned your friend from Scotland. That's I'm curious to hear the backstory there too. But in your Wide Awake Wiley network, who did you kind of come into contact with around this business?
Yeah, so meeting most of my friends, like through vintage, was kind of just through sourcing and stuff. Like I would be at the thrift and I would see like a guy who picked up something that I kind of wanted, so I was kind of a little jealous. But I'd be like, "Oh, bro, like what'd you get?" And they'd show me and be like, "Oh, that's cool. Like, do you resell? Like, are you also doing the same thing as me?" And so that's kind of how a lot of those relationships started. And then I started going to the bins in Dallas, which is like a or it's part of Goodwill where they push out unsorted clothing and unsorted items. And
Yeah.
that's where I met majority of the people just because there's like 20 guys my age who are also doing the same thing. And so some of them are like Ivan, Patrick, Renan,
Wow.
and some of them also would just become or come from like social media when I post and like they have a mutual with me and they're like, oh, like I want to buy this or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the Scottish guy, my guy Saul,
Yeah.
he actually goes to OSU here. Um, we met randomly at Goodwill, and then the next week I saw him out, and I was like, "Oh, hey Saul, like, what are you doing?" I would say he's probably my closest like real friend, like not just like a business connection.
Hmm.
Um, and we just both kind of have a passion for vintage clothing and getting it out there.
And you get to have a friend from Scotland, which not everybody can say.
Super cool.
Shout out Ivan, Patrick. Hope they listen to this episode once it's out there. Very neat. And so you mentioned going to some markets early on in your DFW area. What kind of markets did you get into, and how? I'm curious what the process was like applying, getting in there. Any logistics around like taxes and registering a business? Were you an LLC or not?
Yeah, so DFW actually has a decent amount of like vintage markets. I'd say like off the top of my head, I could probably think of like five. Some of my buddies that I met at the bins, they did those a lot, and I was like, well, I have a bunch of clothes and I'm just selling in my garage, so I might as well get my name out there, get my product out there, and I'm sure I could make some money like them. So me and one of my buddies, Ivan, we used to split booths all the time because we were like, we don't want to spend the booth fees in Dallas are crazy, by the way.
Oh,
They're like
really?
$200 for a 10 by 10,
Wow. Per
where
day?
it's right. Yeah. 10 by
Wow.
10 for $200. Um, and so we would just split that fee, go 50-50, each bring like 2 racks of clothes. And we would do pretty good out there. And as far as like LLC goes, I didn't have my LLC filed at that time. I got my LLC filed at the beginning of 2025.
Gotcha. Okay, so you did go the LLC route.
I
Was there a
did.
reason around that? I know it's like, liability, or is it more bank account, like finance related?
Really, part of it for me was, or the main part of it for me was that I just wanted to be official. Like, I thought it
Yeah.
was so cool that I could be like, yep, I'm a business owner and it's not just like some random thing.
Right.
That was like a big part for me. I remember when my mom gave me like the LLC like filing paper, I like started crying because it was like I had filed
Oh,
it, but
wow.
she paid for it for Christmas and didn't tell me that she was paying for it. And so that was pretty cool. And then also bank account stuff. I wanted my bank
Yeah.
stuff to be separate from my personal.
Yeah. I just love how like social this is. Like you get to just run into people at the thrift store, like sifting through clothes and just connect over that, and then also sell together. There's no one else at Oklahoma State doing vintage clothing, is there? I know we have one from Rock Hill, Landon. We did a story on him earlier in the fall or last spring, I forget, but he's got Land O'Lakes Vintage. Anyone else at OSU?
I don't. There's not vintage, but there's a girl named Tegan. Tigi Threads is her
Oh
business,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and she reworks stuff. So she'll go out and like thrift a hoodie and then get like fabric and not embroider, but do like patchwork designs. So she's
Gotcha.
like the closest probably to it, but there's no one doing like just vintage.
Yeah. Well, with how much Oklahoma State gear you find, that would be a competitor. You know, you have kind of access to the market right now, because I'm sure those are a lot of one of a kind finds that you come across out there. And is it mostly Goodwill that you shop at, or where mostly?
Yeah, Goodwill's probably the most consistent out here just because it's a big corporation and they're always putting new
Yeah.
stuff out. But there's also a few like local thrift stores out here, like Super Thrift. They have a couple locations out here and then just random mom and pop stores out
Gotcha.
here. And then I also, beyond thrifting, I like to buy online. And if I see anything that's like crazy valuable, I'm willing to
Yeah.
pay the shipping and taxes
Yeah.
and all that to cover
Right.
it.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it can be a very, very profitable business, especially you can get these things for, $1, $2, $3. And then some, I know I learned this from Landon at Winthrop University here in South Carolina, and he's part of the student made Rock Hill branch. And he's like, some of these can be like $50 and up, where they're only for people give them to Goodwill because they think they're worth like nothing.
Mhm.
And you turning that profit, like spending $2 selling it for 50, like with no other material costs needed, like what a great, I just love that. It seems so smart. So before we get more into our section on Oklahoma State, you being a student there and running your business out of there, I got to hear about the name. I don't think we've covered that yet. Threefold Vintage. Where did that come about? I see you got your logo and a clothing rack behind you as well. Where did the name come from?
Um, Honestly, the main thing was I just wanted it to sound really cool. And so I was talking to my mom. We were bouncing ideas for like 2 days, but it was like 4 hours over 2 days, just like trying to come up with stuff. And this was before Chat GPT could give me a cool name.
Oh yeah.
Um, but Trey, meaning like three, and then
Oh
fold, like fold clothes. I don't know. I was
yeah.
like, that sounds neat. So unfortunately, there's not like a crazy cool like thing behind it, but it's just
I
like
think that is crazy cool because that's a genius. Tries three, folding clothes, and then threefold means like you mentioned something in your story that was three things. I don't think we'll get there later on, but like three things you do to grow your business. Threefold strategy. There you go. Love it. So Oklahoma State. I've never been there. You are part of the business school, I know, the Spears School of Business. Curious just to hear a little background of your experience on campus, the culture, how it's influenced you as a person, also your business. And because I know, as we've discussed, your business has become very closely tied to the culture of that campus, the colors, everything, just about everything you offer is orange.
well, like I said, I was gonna go to OU for a while, but coming to Stillwater and going to Spear School of Business, I just like fell in love with all the resources. And something people always say is the people in Stillwater are so nice. And me and my mom used to make fun of it. But when I like really have been here and she's visited however many times, it's really true. Like the people here are just unbelievably nice and will go out of their way to help you. And so that's something I've loved about the culture here. And then obviously with my business, like you said, it's closely tied.
Yeah,
I used to just sell like whatever vintage, and I still do a little bit, but it's kind of shifted to mainly focus on OSU just because I'm here and I love the stories behind the pieces, because it's all capturing OSU culture as a whole.
totally. Totally. And so we got connected to you, of course, through Student Made. I know in your story you mentioned how you had like tried to do a couple events around Stillwater, but were struggling a little bit to tap into that customer community. So, getting into Student Made a little bit, curious what that's brought you as far as accessing a customer base more accessibly. Also, having that community, as we touched on earlier, community of other entrepreneurs to kind of relate to, bounce ideas off of. What can you say about being part of that community so far?
Student Made has definitely helped me a ton with like getting my name in front of people, I would say. Like I would say covering students and stuff I'm pretty good at. I can just from word of mouth and stuff. But with Student Made, having these events all throughout Stillwater with people that I wouldn't normally target, but they're still OSU fans, that's been great because it's been like moms and grandmas and aunts and uncles that are shopping instead of just students.
Yeah, and it's cool when you're known. I think the fact that you do OSU gear pretty much exclusively is a great idea, just because it allows you to really have that niche and be known as that person. When you have a little bit of everything, it's like, how do you really describe what you do? It's just vintage clothes, but now you're like, it's vintage Oklahoma State gear, and like how perfect. Hence the title of this episode, or the main theme we're going after, is kind of like honing your brand to your environment, which I think is so cool. I mean, and if you go to grad school somewhere, that opens up a whole other, a whole other collection. You could, maybe that'll be OU, and then you'll have, there'll be rivals. So you said in your story, 100-piece drop was your biggest highlight so far. So huge congrats on that. I'll definitely be adding it a little sound when we publish this episode, because that's just doing some quick math. I mean, 100 pieces, $30 looks like roughly is your average price. Not so bad. Not such a bad payday there. I think you credit a lot of that to like marketing promotion, you said, like really taking the marketing seriously. That is a huge lesson for all of our entrepreneurs to learn. The difference between, putting a business out there and hoping something happens with it, compared to being really deliberate and intentional and consistent about the marketing and the branding around it. So what kind of lessons can you share with us, including myself as a business owner? I always have more things to learn, about the strategy you used there. Like what really helped you during that drop?
I think the main thing is just having a polished image, because I think a lot of vintage people, especially when they're running their businesses, it's very like everything looks like UGC. And like if you're trying to turn it into something authentic, I think it needs to look a little more polished than that. And so that's something I've been trying to find the balance between recently, is my more polished images and photos and whatnot, but also having a personal connection, because I still want that. So I'll do reels where I'm showing pieces that I've picked up, and stuff like that. And then on top of that, with marketing and social media, I think the big thing is consistency. Like you need to have a brand presence on social media. You can't just post once every month or twice a month. Like it should be consistent.
So did you post about every single piece in that collection, or how did you, that'd be a lot of posts.
So with that one, I believe I just picked like 20 of my favorites, and I actually had a couple friends model for me. So that was cool. So we went to like an old like beat up barn, and we just used that area for photos, and I would pick out pieces for them to try on, and just shoot content with that. And I think I probably covered like 30 to 40% of my products in the photos, just picking out my favorites and what I think people will be driven or attracted to. So they'll come look at everything else. And I'd say that's pretty consistent with what I do now too. I just show about 30 to 40% of the items going out.
I was taking a look through your collection on the student made OkState's site, and I noticed your background you used was like a distressed, it almost looked like a concrete floor or something, or a wall. And I like that because it kind of lends to your brand. It's that distressed feel. And like you said, a beat up barn, that's good. Like maybe not ideal for every type of business, but the vintage clothing is like, it goes. And so I think, credit to you there, finding your brand and really capturing that. And we've heard on the show before, product photos are a big thing. And like, if you have a product that is like very nature oriented, like taking your pictures outside is a good idea. And obviously college campuses allow for that, with a lot of like beautiful environments. So So it makes it fun. It's really cool. You get to add some character there to the photos, to your posts, to the whole brand. So little follow up on that question. Any idea of how many products roughly you've sold all time now? I know that's a 100-piece drop. It looks like you had about 100 more on the site. So that's at least 200 that you found anyway.
Oh man, a lot. I know just on Depop, which is like one of the platforms I used to only like. I used to just sell on Depop, which is like Poshmark for vintage clothing, is the best way
Yeah.
to explain it. I think I have about 1,700 sales on there.
Wow.
I probably have maybe 150 on eBay, and then plus markets, maybe like 5 to 750, and then with OSU drops being online, probably around 400 maybe. So whatever that
What?
math is, maybe like a little under
Just
3K, maybe two and a half.
yeah, 29 that's 2,900 and we're saying your average price is roughly $30. So that's $87,000, Trey O'Toole. I'm talking to a wealthy man. What? I was not expecting you to say that many, honestly. I was going to say upwards of like a few hundred. $87,000. Wow, goosebumps. That might be our highest sales we've ever heard of in Student Made. That's
We'll rough estimate that for sure.
well rough. Even 80,000. Like what? That's so wild. Okay, wow. I'm shocked. So you still have 1 year left at OSU, graduating in 27. If I were you, especially after just hearing that number, I would totally be thinking this is something I could do full time after graduation, especially with another year of preparation. So we'll leave that as kind of a cliffhanger for a second before we transition onto our last section.
Hi, this is Trey, and thanks for listening to my story. Be sure to check out my vintage OSU clothing at studentmadeOkState.com. Some of my favorites right now are my vintage satin jackets and crew necks. You can find my collection linked in today's episode show notes and in the apparel collection on the website. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of the episode.
Give me a second to recover from that number, $87,000. My goodness. Okay, so yeah, graduation a little bit more than a year. I guess just open-ended. What are your plans, if any yet? And how does Threefold Vintage fit into them right now?
So as of right now, I don't have a job lined up for like after school yet, just because I mean that's pretty far away. But the goal, like I said in my story, would be to work for a marketing agency or like a PR agency, something like that. I want to do something client facing.
Okay.
I'm also not opposed to doing that on my own, like starting my own marketing agency out of wherever I'm living. And as far as Threefold goes, I don't think I'll ever like not have an appreciation for the story behind like old clothes or old things. And I always see myself kind of being like a side hustler where I'll go thrift and be like, okay, this is valuable. I can get more than $4 for it and sell it. Like I know like recently I just bought a bag of action figures for like $3 and I'm like I'm not the action figure guy. But I think I'll always just like see the opportunity for money in a lot of different
Yeah.
things.
And not just money, but like finding really cool things. Like that's just the fun of it. Like you
Yes,
get to
sir.
have fun, you're out and about, you're exploring new places, meeting people, learning the stories behind like all these products. It's so cool. It sounds super fun. Maybe as a full time, it would get. I don't know how many hours you put toward a week right now, but as a full time thing, I could see it like maybe getting old, as kind of anything does that you do all the time. But how many hours roughly do you think you put toward this a week?
I'd probably say like on an average week, maybe like 15. I don't know. I like to camp out at the thrift store when I'm up there. So it could be a swing of a 30 minutes to 2 hours in there. So
Right, right. Oh, I'm sure. Goodwill would be a good sponsor for this episode. We'll reach out to them. So, however, Threefold fits into your future plans, curious just what strategies you foresee being most helpful to you in the future. I know you mentioned your Saul dude from Scotland, your other friend network, so mentorship seems big. any other like strategies? Of course, we talked about the product photos and your branding. Anything else that's like, my next stage of growth requires this, or like I need to be thinking about this, whatever it might be?
I would say mainly is just like my marketing knowledge. I think I have a pretty decent marketing knowledge just from coursework and like the fact that I apply everything to what I do. And now that I'm running the student made OSU Instagram as well, like just I've been picking up random accounts to try to help out and run just to kind of build that portfolio. And then I would agree with mentorship and connections. It's preached to choirs at the Spear School of Business, but
Yeah.
I think it's hard when you hear that over and over again, and it seems like it probably doesn't matter if it's getting repeated in your head, but
Yeah.
it really does matter. Like there's so many people who have helped me grow this, and just people who have helped me as an individual.
Wow. And marketing manager, we didn't really touch too much on that in this episode, but you are full-time student, 15 hours a week, side hustler, and a manager on the student manager team. So that's pretty phenomenal. And you said how you originally started this, you didn't have time for a full-time job growing up. So I guess I understand that you're busy. You're a busy guy in a lot of different areas. Maybe just touch for a second on your manager experience so far, being part of that 6-member team, doing the marketing. Has that influenced your business much, learning from that side?
I wouldn't say necessarily my business, but just like my knowledge in general or like experience. Because before I've just had like my personal Instagram and my business Instagram. And obviously the difference between running the student made Instagram and my personal Instagram and the Threefold Instagram is not going to be the same.
Right.
So it's kind of been fun to figure out if I can apply what I already know to different target markets, different brands and whatnot. And I think I'm getting the hang of it. So yeah, I think that knowledge and just pushing that into the future with whatever social media or marketing opportunities come my way.
Yeah. Sounds like you're building quite a resume. Absolutely. I mean, way more than I ever did in college. And that's the case with most of these people we talk to on this show. Very impressive. Curious, this is kind of our last question before we move on to our signature Making It Creative question. So you said you want to go into like the marketing world. Is that financially oriented? Like there's more money in that? Or is that genuinely a field you think you enjoy more than vintage thrifting? I just like to ask because, it seems like people do really well in their side business and could do it full time. And I wonder, is it more like money oriented, or do you actually just have something that you think you might enjoy even more? And then with that, is there a point of success that you could reach with your side business where you would want it to become your full-time thing?
I think it's somewhat financially oriented just because it's more stable than being an entrepreneur. But I just love marketing. And I think that working on different accounts, like having clients under me would be a blast because I am working on like clothing and then a sports drink brand and then a makeup brand. Like I think it's just fun to put your skills onto different like projects, I guess. But my dream job would be Patagonia. I didn't mention that earlier, but I'm in love with Patagonia and all of their marketing. And in regards to certain level of future success, I mean, if I was getting paid out what a starting job would, I would probably consider it. And I'm not opposed to trying to get to that point. That's actually like something that I see trying to accomplish, especially this in 2026 because I'm off to a hot start. So
Nice.
We'll see.
Cool. Yeah, we're only 3 months in, so that's phenomenal. Love Patagonia. That was one of the first brands for me that I became kind of obsessed with too. In college, it was like Patagonia. Allbirds was another one. I don't know if you're an Allbirds guy. The shoes, the merino wool shoes. Yeah, I love that. And from like the sustainability element, I feel like the recycling, repurposing is a big thing. I know they make their clothes to pretty much last forever. But then whatever is, older, I know they have like a big recycled program. Was it like where? I don't remember the name of it.
I'm not sure either.
You can like, it's a whole website where you can go and buy used Patagonia stuff. I feel like Wear is in the name, Wear Again or something. Wornwear? It might be called Wornwear.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, and you can get stuff for like significantly reduced. You get like $20 jackets instead of, and they're pretty much in brand new condition because they're built to last forever. So
Right.
definitely support you in that, joining the Patagonia team. I'm sure they'd be glad to have you. So, signature question. This has been great. Just learning so much about you. Curious. You mentioned that drop. So I don't know if I'm stealing your answer here. That 100-piece drop was a big highlight. But our signature question here is, if you could keep one 60-second snapshot from your whole business journey so far, that kind of like one thing you could keep in your memory, what stands out to you most and why?
I will say that volume 2 drop was definitely up there, and that was probably what I was going to go with, but I'll go another route because it's a close second. I would say when I found the bag of vintage clothes while we were driving around on the golf cart, it was really weird because it was in a trash bag. I'll be honest, it's kind of dirty, but it was tipped over, and I was like, okay, guys, there's a shirt hanging out. I think my little sister was with me that day. There was a shirt hanging out, and I was like, Dad, I'm just going to grab it. And he was like, dude, it's probably dirty. Like, it probably has cat pee on it. And I was like, no, it's okay. And so I grabbed it. I picked it up, and it was a 70's Big Bird Sesame Street shirt and wasn't covered in cat pee. But I think that was the first shirt that I ever sold online. So I guess that process, I don't know that that's necessarily 60 seconds, but maybe a couple days.
Yeah, you could either montage it together, hyperspeed, or I love that moment. I love the seeing it tipped over, seeing a shirt was in there, going for it. It feels like so, I think because of what we were talking about of like the kind of like creepiness in a way of like being on people's property, and like it's kind of like exhilarating in a way. I don't know.
Shop the Student Made website, show support to all the creators that are part of the Student Made community. And I'll plug my own Instagram, Threefold Vintage.
Okay, Threefold Vintage on Instagram. And Trey, just phenomenal, amazing time talking with you. And maybe there'll be an opportunity to have another conversation with you in the future when you're awesome. Trey the millionaire. Thank you so much to Trey for being our wonderful and inspiring guest today. Again, you can find our podcast, Making It Creative, on Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music. Please subscribe there. Also, would love your help sharing this episode once it's out. As far as what's coming up for us, you can expect more episodes like this one on the journeys of creative student founders around the country, as well as our monthly Top Brands episodes featuring our top 3 favorite student brands of the month and what's helping them be successful. And then lastly, a monthly message from our co-founder, Lindsay, on tips and insights for creative founders growing small businesses, as she shares some takeaways from her own journey growing Student Made to over 20 campuses over the past 4 years. For next time, we will be chatting with our co-founder, Lindsay, on 5 ways to reset your business for spring, really focusing on the power of your space, rejuvenating your space to influence your work. We will see you there, and until then, make it creative.
You want to go look at the trash?